Here I've got Cherry Audio's latest offering. It's their Dreamsynth. It's not based on any other synth in particular, like the Memory Mode, the Mercury 4, the CA2600, the MS20, the 106, the A-Voice or the Quadra. This is its own thing. And what is it? Well, it starts off as looking like an extremely knobby interface and quite confusing actually, but it's not really. Once you focus in on it, it's actually very well laid out and you get all the usual Cherry Audio bits and bobs. You get the QWERTY keyboard, MIDI learn, so you can learn your different parameters. Over sampling quality, I'll stick it on the highest because I'm on an M1 Mac, so it's super powerful. So just to let you know, it does work on an M1 Mac. We can focus in on certain bits and you can see really nice and crisp and clear GUI. Well, what is it? It's called the Dreamsynth because it's the Dreamsynth you might have wished you had back in the 80s. It's got analog waveforms, we've got PCM samples, we've got single cycle samples, which are a bit like wavetables, but there's no table in there, just a single cycle sample. And then we've got one shots as well. So these are just like little samples. So it's that sort of JD800, D50 style, plus you've got analog as well. We've got an OB style state variable filter, low pass, notch, high pass, and band pass. We've got two ADSR envelopes and, oddly enough, a completely separate strings synth. Plus we've got 3 LFOs and 5 effects. But after playing with it for the past couple of days, I think the USP is really the fact that it's virtual analog or it's PCM, so it's like having something a bit like the Jupiter 8 plus something like the JD800 or the D50 all built in. You've got some FM tones in there as well. And it is quite a complex thing. We've got 3 oscillators, but each of the oscillators has 2 waveforms. So actually, if you detune these by an octave or 2, for example, you end up with the sound of 2 oscillators. So that's 6 oscillators. So if you're playing on 8 voices, 6 oscillators on 8 voices is 48 oscillators, and we can go up to 16. So if I just, I don't know what, let's, something like this. What have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 playing. Let's put it on 16 voices. Beautiful, and we're on unison mode there, so we're playing all 16 voices, so we're playing 16 times this 6. 16 times 6, what's that? 76 oscillators. And you've got to admit, that does sound pretty nice, doesn't it? Let's take a listen to a couple of the others. There we're playing 9 voices in poly mode and we're playing 1 note at a time there. And that's playing 3 PCM samples. These are all just coming out of oscillator A on 1, 2 and 3, so nothing is coming out of B. So when I play a single note, I'm playing 9 times 3 oscillators, so 27 oscillators. Let's put that into unison and detune it just to see. That's quite nice, and here's one I created from one of the presets. Put that into single mode. To unison again. And just to hammer the point home, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 voices, would you call that, or 5 different wave shapes playing in unison with 8 at a time. Every key press is 40 oscillators, sort of. Pretty nice, isn't it? I've already started talking about the oscillators, so let's dig into them a little bit more. I did say we got 3 LFOs, but actually if you look at this, on the left of each of the oscillators, you've got a pitch LFO as well. So actually you've got 6 LFOs on this. Let's turn the others down, or let's just solo A. Let's just listen to oscillator 1, and let's listen to just wave A. So we've got the analog waves. Let's turn that cutoff up, shall we? And let's pan that to the center. Sounds like a big, huge sawtooth there, and that's because we've got 8 playing in unison with detune on. Let's put it into single mode. It's got a nice rich feel, hasn't it? Ramp and saw, they're the same thing essentially, but you can use these as modulation sources, which means that the ramp is different to the saw. And something I did with the Iridium is just use the single sine and play something like this. It's quite nice, isn't it? Triangle, white noise and pink noise. And then we've got all these different PCM samples. And a PCM sample is different to a wavetable because it's a sample that's basically looped. You can hear that looping. And the higher up you go, the quicker the loop. And this is the Roland style of programming. As I say, things like the D50, the JD800. And that does sound very Rolandy actually, doesn't it? It does take me back to the JD08 I played a couple of weeks ago. 8-bit violins. It's got a really nice feel, hasn't it? But of course, the beauty of this is that you can mix different types of waveforms. So let's mix that with a sine. And we're listening there to just a single oscillator. So quite cool, really nice, nice way of setting things up. We've got tuning on the oscillator, we've got pulse width, it only works on the pulse waves. It doesn't work on anything else, so it doesn't work on a saw, for example. We don't get warping of the sounds, basically. Doesn't go through zero, but it does actually sound like an analog synth, doesn't it? You can detach it from the keyboard because you can use it as a modulation source, which brings me to the modulation buttons and knobs. Click on that, we've got all the modulation sources available, and you can see here we've got FM available from oscillator 1, 2 and 3, envelopes, LFOs, LFOs in different phases, etc, etc. So there's quite a few modulation sources there. So everything that you see here with a little blue line and a little box around it is the modulation destination. So that includes all the effects parameters, the filter, and pretty much everything on the oscillators as well. And on the LFOs, we've got similar, but we don't have exactly the same modulation sources. We don't have, for example, on this, we've got the VCF and the VCA envelopes. We don't have that on the LFO. So just slightly different there, but really flexible. Imagine if this was a modulator with patch points. There's an awful lot going on, isn't there? Let's try a bit of FM. Let's load in a template. Yeah, it's got some good FM on this, which is why I said it's like a bit of a cross between a D50 and a Jupiter 8. I'm not going to try and attempt to create Jupiter 8 sounds on it. That would take a bit too long. But you get the idea. It's really, really flexible and it sounds nice. So let's take a look at the filter. And as I said, it's a state variable filter, very much in the style of an Oberheim. So we're not getting really screechy resonance out of it. But what I did notice is actually if we turn the voices onto something other than one, let's go into poly mode. Let's put it onto 3 voices for now. Resonance up. We can hear we're getting a slightly different tone or a slightly different cut-off frequency for each of the voices. So 3 voices. Go to 4 voices in case it's not entirely clear to you. Go back to 2. So quite cool. It's definitely sort of an analog filter. So an analog filter, 1 pair voice, slightly in need of calibration. But really nice and smooth. And we've got low pass to notch. Let's play a chord. Put it on chord mode, shall we? Play a chord. There we go. So I'm playing 1 note at a time. Put it onto a notch. I do like a notch. And to demo how the modulation works, let's modulate that with LFO1. Turn it up a bit. That's nice, isn't it? Should we try that on a pulse? So let's bring, I have a saw and a pulse actually, just give it a little test. Pulse width, modulation, let's do that with LFO2. That is all very usable, isn't it? I keep on saying it, but it does sound nice. Let's move it into high pass. And we got bandpass as well. Just take the modulation off for now. And we've got a modulation slot for everything there and 2 for the cutoff, so really flexible. And again, don't forget, we're just listening to oscillator 1 there. Let's take a look at the strings actually, shall we? Let's turn this all down. And I think this is something they built for the Quadra. It does sound like it, and it's got similar functionality or the same. Let's bring the level up. And there's not much you can do with this. You've got your own little envelope in here. It's got a really old school feel, hasn't it? Yeah, it's doing what you'd expect. It doesn't go through the filter. Let's put the phaser on it. Oops, let's put it on the strings. Let's try a bit of chorus. So I'm showing you how you use the effects here as well. Once you played with one of these buttons, you sort of understand everything actually. It's really simple to get to grips with. Although, as I say, when you first open it up, you look at it and think, oh my God, there's so much going on. But it's super simple, quite a clever interface. We've got split and layer, so the synth can play on different keys in the string. If I just put the synth on some low ones, I'm just hitting the keys there, the string will play on the higher ones. And we sort of touched on the voices sign earlier. We've got single, got unison, detune, different note priorities, a chord memory, and polymodes 1 and 2. I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'm sure it'll be in the manual when it comes out. And then the effects, I've not played the distortion yet, so we put a bass tone on. So all quite nice actually. Phaser, we've got different stages. Chorus flanger, rotary speaker. Delay, we've got a stereo delay and a tape delay. Let's try the tape delay. Sounds like they're using some of the algorithms or some of the learning from their Space Echo emulation. And then a few reverbs as well. Let's try Galactic, shall we? Oops, let's turn it on. Let's turn the mix up. That's a very acceptable little reverb. Cool. So the other thing that's worth noting is the amount of presets you get with this, and they're all really nice quality. We've got different collections here by different preset makers. So J3PO, he does really nice bits. What else has he got in here? Funk bass. Sounds like a funk bass. High-end brass. Yeah, sunset. I think that wasn't bad for a quick whistle-stop tour of the Dreamsynth. It's really interesting. It's not based on anything else, as you can tell, but it's got the best bits of lots of things, and it's quite nice and refreshing that it is a completely different synth. So you're not trying to think, does it sound exactly like something else? Does that really matter? Isn't it about the fun of having to play with all these different things? And actually, for learning about synthesis, it's actually quite a simple thing to use. Looking at the modulation, how the modulation works, you know, if you can use this, you can pick up a mod matrix anywhere. We've got PCM samples, we've got analog waveforms, we've got wavetable style things. So yeah, if this did come out in the late 80s, it would have been an absolute dream synth. I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere, and if it was, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, and maybe join me on my Patreon page where we've got hours and hours of tutorials helping you to get the most out of your synths. And I will see you next time.